Hi there. Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon. Look, I'm so programmed to starting at 10 a.m. I've forgotten what time of day it is. This is the Development and Regeneration Scrutiny Panel. Because it's the first meeting of the municipal year, we just need to agree a convener. So Councillor Holly has agreed to stay on as convener this year. If anybody would like to propose that, thank you. Yeah, we've got seconds. Brilliant, thank you. And I shall hand over to Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Scrutiny Performance Panel Development and Regeneration. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. We have one from Councillor Peter Black. Anyone else?
No further apologies.
No? Okay. Item 3 on the agenda is disclosure of personal and prejudicial interests. Any members? No? Any officers? No? Okay. Item 4 on the agenda is the one that's on all the scrutiny boards, a prohibition of whip votes and declarations of party whips. Item 5 are the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have agreement that they're a true and accurate record? So Jeff Jones and Councillor Mark Tribe. Okay. Right, we now have item 6, public questions. We have had 3 questions in. I will read them out. I think the answers, I think, would probably come from you. The first question is, in the Development Regeneration Scrutiny Panel on 20th of March, there was reference to a resounding positive response at the consultation meeting. This fails to mention the considerable opposition at the meeting. Can you confirm that or not?
I can address this, Councillor Holly.
Pardon? Who's that?
Mainly, it's Lee Richards.
Oh, Lee. Oh, sorry, Lee.
Yeah, I can address that. There was quite a considerable support for the scheme, as you've just pointed out, and with all schemes there will be some opposition, but mainly that the opposition comments that were provided were ones of inquiry more than anything else. This is information which has been provided to us obviously by Skyline, as the council aren't the developer here. Just reminding everybody, that's all that we're doing is enabling and leasing the land to Skyline. So the information that they've provided, and this information forms part of their pack, which is the pre-application consultation that supports their planning application. That lists all the questions that were raised during the meeting and the answers as part of the consultation event. But as I say, a number of the questions were relating to things just like what is the pricing that will apply to the scheme, to questions on access and ecology. So they were the main questions that were coming forward from the various parties who attended the event.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee. It's surprising that the second question from the member of the public, I think you had sight of. We were told at the consultation the annual pass mentioned for Swansea residents applies to the gondola ride only, and this is what I have seen advertised. The price for other attractions had not yet been fixed. Can you confirm that is right?
It is right, and if I can just read you a quick statement that's been provided to me by Skyline, and it reads: a pricing plan is currently being developed with the intention of ensuring that everyone will be able to enjoy various aspects of the attraction. So currently being worked up, and they very much hope to be able to release and share it with everybody shortly.
Okay, thank you very much. The third question is one for clarification more than anything else. The press release indicates that the Welsh Government have awarded £4 million rather than £3 million to the scheme. Which figure is correct?
Again, Chair, it's actually 4 million and that has been published, and there's we can provide a copy of the link to the web page published by Welsh Government. It's £4 million, of which £3 million is grant and a £1 million loan.
So for clarification, and the 4 million is made up of £1 million loan and £3 million in grant.
It is, that's correct.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Lee. That's public questions done, which was a bit of a surprise. We haven't had them for a while. The next item on the agenda is Swansea Arena update. Can I welcome Councillor Robert Francis Davis, the Cabinet Member for Investment, Regeneration, Events and Tourism, and Lee, who you've already introduced himself, but it's a pleasure also to meet Lisa Mart online, who is the venue director at Swansea Arena. Councillor Robert Francis Davis, do you wish to say anything in the beginning?
Well, I suppose if you're asking, am I personally satisfied in the way in which the arena is performing to date, I would say yes, I certainly am. It was envisaged that it would be like a 3-year program of it building up until it, like any new business, it still starts breaking even, then starting getting into profit. I think it's been performing better than anticipated in its first year. I think it was 78.9% occupancy, which exceeded the projection, which was of 65%. It's attracted some, really good events. There's been 241,000 people enjoyed their ticketing events up until March. That was. So probably the best person to ask is the manager of the Ambassador Theatre Group that I'm managing this wonderful venue, and probably Lisa would be better to handle. She is there day in, day out, and I think it's probably best to get it straight to the horse's mouth. Not that I'm calling Lisa a horse, of course.
Very inappropriate terminology, I think. Okay, Lisa, would you like to start off? I know that Lee would like to say something as well, possibly. So if we start off with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me along to talk about it. I think in general, the attitude from ATG and of course the venue team is that the first year of the arena was incredibly successful. I'm aware that when some of our figures have been released to the public, they have been compared to the business plan that was of course put together in 2017, which I think we can all agree was a very different world to the one that we find ourselves in. Of course, the arena opened literally a week after COVID restrictions were lifted, which is seen as sort of good timing and bad timing, depending on how you look at it. So ultimately, in regards of taking that context into consideration, the first year has been, an absolute great success for us. When sort of making that decision and feeding back to my CEO and my SLT at ATG, I've done a lot of benchmarking against other venues of a similar size across the UK. And what we're finding is the number that performances that we had in year one has actually exceeded some of those other venues. That's mostly down to the flexibility of the venue in regards to the fact that we can have week-long theatre as well as standing productions, which means, of course, we can have a week of 8 shows, whereas some of our competitors or colleagues across the country don't have that infrastructure in place. So that's really helped us with those performance numbers, getting them up. All of the figures are, of course, in the report. As you can see, we had 74 performances in year one. And as has already been alluded to, our occupancy figures are much higher than we expected. Conference and events is gone absolutely through the roof for us. I think that was an element of the business plan that we thought was going to take a while to build. And what we found is that there's been a real hunger for that. So whilst we're getting the confidence of promoters and producers to come to this area and come to our new building, actually the conference and events industry has been much more keen and much more easier to get. And I think that's probably because of how beautiful the area is. It hasn't taken much persuasion. The feedback we've had in the building has been incredible, especially in regards to music events. One of our promoters was heard to say that we had the best sound in the UK, which when you're dealing with music promoters is the thing that is most important to them. So that's been great. We've also been told that some of the back of house facilities we have are some of the best in the UK. Again, when you've got very high profile artists coming, that's what you want to be able to offer them, that comfort and that ease of a load in. So in terms of the design of the building, there's been some real wins. Just to follow on as well, I think one of the big successes of the venue is I think there was a lot of feedback originally from the public that the capacity was maybe a bit too small to get some of those bigger names, but we have proven that that's not the case, and a lot of the tours that we've had come through the venue have actually went on to play the O2 Arena. Most recently, of course, was the Hollywood Vampires on Friday that went from us up to Manchester Arena and then to the O2 after that. That was obviously a really big win for us, and I'm sure you've seen all the press about Johnny Depp visiting the home of Dylan Thomas, which was a real boost for them as well. So all in all, we do still have some challenges in regards to some of the utility costs, etc., which are impacting all businesses at the moment. And there are some ongoing snagging issues that are taking place in the local area and internally, but we're sort of coming to the end of that now. And I think we're seeing already in year 2 some really good growth. So that's my summary.
Okay, Lee, would you like to add anything to that?
Nothing to add to that. Thank you, Chair.
Any members who wish to make comments? Right, okay, Councillor Jeff Jones, Councillor Michael Locke. Anyone else wish to indicate online so I can put your names down on the list? No. Right, okay.
Bill Thomas has got his hand up.
Okay, hello, thank you. Right, Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, hello, Lisa. Welcome to Swansea. I can see you're not local with an accent like that. I can see the ticketed performances. Yeah, I must admit, one of my, shall we say, I thought drawbacks was that the arena was too small, you know. I know the capacity is, well, 2,400, I think you've actually been running on. Has it ever actually gone up to 3,500? Or is it all 2,004?
So when we're in a seated capacity, we're 2,200. And when we've got a music gig with standing, we're 3,500. And yes, we have had a large number. I think we've had about 12 events.
Okay.
1,000, including the event that we just had on Friday.
Yeah. And I think, you know, perhaps one of the drawbacks you've actually mentioned as well was attracting, shall we say, if I can call it top quality acts, you know, that may have been a little bit of a minus with regards to the capacity issue. Have we had anybody that's actually would do to actually, you know, come to Swansea and then change their mind and said no, the capacity is too small?
No, we've not had anyone removed from our diary based on capacity alone. It tends to usually be a diary issue, trying to sort of make a tour work across the UK as to whether they can travel down. Because of our facilities and because of the ease of the load-in that we have that's been designed, actually we're finding a lot of artists want to come to us for production day, which means they come to us a day before at the start of their tour. So Royal Blood did that, Alice Cooper did that on his last tour, and Hollywood Vampires have done that on this tour as well. So although the capacity is slightly smaller than some of the other venues that they visit on the tour, they take advantage of our facilities to get in, to do their sound check, to rehearse, to get the set up, and then they do a performance with us on day 2. So that's one of the benefits that we have outside of capacity.
Okay. You know, with regards to, you can actually, it's down on the papers, you've got 74 ticketed performances. I think the target, they said around about 100 in the first year and perhaps build to 200 the second year. Do you intend or do you expect to actually reach that 200?
The number 200 was to also include the conferences and events as well. So we were looking to get to 100 ticketed performances. But as I sort of alluded to at the beginning, in regards to the context of that first year of opening, when the industry was on a bit of a slowdown, we haven't reached that number. But like I say, it is in line and actually higher than a lot of the established venues across the UK of a similar size. So we hope it might be a little bit slower than what we originally intended as the industry rebuilds, but we do hope to get to those numbers still. We still feel like we have that ability.
Okay. You know, are there any minuses that you actually come across? You know, you must get some sort of feedback from people actually attending, you know, the arena. You know, have there been any drawbacks with regards to what the people have expected and what they've actually had at the end of the day?
I think one of the biggest drawbacks for us is just that the local Swansea community maybe just aren't used to coming to a venue like us. And they've obviously got the gorgeous theatres locally and they've got the large stadium, but things like coming through a full security operation or some of the expectations around sort of the ticketing side of things has been a bit of a learning curve for them. But I think now that we're a year in, people are used to understanding they have to get here a bit early and they have to think about car parking and things like that. I think maybe there was an underestimation about how much people of Swansea enjoy a drink. I think probably the biggest piece of feedback we have is the bars and the queues at the bar. But of course, you know, we're only a year in now. We've been building up our staffing and we've been learning. So I can only say that we promise we're improving on that front. But other than those simple things, the feedback overwhelmingly has been very positive about the programme.
Okay, I must admit, I think people in Swansea do enjoy a drink, but really where you come from, perhaps they enjoy it more, you know?
I think
Anyway,
we're on par,
thanks.
I would say.
On par, there we are. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Michael Lock.
Right, the question I've got to ask is, the Albert Hall in Swansea will be opening, I think, in the next year or so. That has a capacity of, I think, is 800. Is that going to have any, is that going to take any of your acts or any of your business?
No, we wouldn't. In terms of our operational costs and our hire fees and all those sorts of things, we wouldn't take a product that was of a capacity of 800 because the visiting production wouldn't make any income from that. So I think it will just add another nice sort of event space for artists and acts to kind of work their way up through the different venues, hopefully come to us and then go to the stadium when they're even bigger.
Councillor Will Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for your presentation. Very nice to meet you. When you mentioned the occupancy was good, I'm just wondering how that compared to the sort of target revenue in the business plan.
So yeah, like I say, the occupancy is much higher, but we've had fewer performances. So we've sort of averaged out ultimately in terms of the income that we've been getting. What has stung us the most, as I've alluded to, is that utilities side of things and the operational costs. That's something that looks to be calming down a little bit now in year two. So we're finding that balance. But having fewer performances, but more people coming to those performances has meant that we have balanced out on a revenue point of view from ticketed events.
Okay, so with utility costs, obviously that's understandable because we've seen energy prices going up. What other costs are you alluding to that maybe weren't foreseen in the business plan or are different to the business plan?
It's hard to sort of go into too much detail, but I think in regards to the design of the building, this building is, there's not another one like it in the UK. Obviously, the carcass of it is very similar to the Bonus Arena in Hull, but even the team at Bonus Arena have visited us and said that, you know, we're an upgrade from that and we're therefore very different. There's a lot of flexibility in regards to the sort of events that we can put on. A really good example of that is obviously, as I've said, we had Hollywood Vampires on Friday night, which was 3,500 people, standing gig, full operation, full American music team, many trucks. And then we went into Paul Smith, which was a seated, sold out comedian on the Friday night. So that was an overnight change of operation completely. And then today we've got graduations. So I think in terms of understanding the operation of the venue and how to make that efficient has been a big learning curve for us in regards to the manpower needed, and also how to control. It's a digital arena, right? So there's a huge amount of different things that we have to take into consideration. And in fact, the lighting system, it's not light switches, it's all done on computers, all these sorts of things that we've had to learn operationally, which have taken us a beat, to be honest. We didn't walk into this building fully efficient like we would have liked to. We've had to learn from it, and that's why in year 2 I think we've seen as much growth as we have, because we're managing that a lot better.
Okay, so the staffing costs are higher than we anticipated, basically. Okay.
Yeah,
And
of course, and obviously, you know, F&B costs are much higher in terms of buying in the cost of sales and minimum wage increases and all these sorts of things. So there's been a huge uplift based on compared to the business plan.
Yeah, understandable. With the utility stuff, certainly. Just one other question. Have you had any complaints about traffic outside the venue or anything? I mean, I'm based, my ward's further down, and I haven't had any complaints, something which I'm amazed at, really. I thought it would cause some congestion, but I'm just wondering if there has been any complaints or situations that I'm unaware of.
No, we've actually been really delighted by the lack of complaints as well. Like you say, when we applied for our licence, a lot of the local residents, of course, had a lot of concerns in regards to what our existence would do to their day-to-day living and the impact. But the feedback that we get constantly is that it's absolutely fine, and it's not as bad as they thought. And the constant communication between us is keeping everyone happy. So no, in terms from a traffic point of view, no, we haven't had feedback on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Mike White.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks, Lisa, for the presentation. Can I just ask, of the headline acts that have already been there, have they shown an interest to return to the venue?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the reason we had Hollywood Vampires with us on Friday, so Hollywood Vampires is Alice Cooper, Johnny Depp and Joe Perry. The reason that they visited us was because Alice Cooper visited us on his tour last year. And I think he loves a bit of golf, which also helps. But they obviously made a decision to return. We've also had the West End musical 6 was with us last year, and that did so well that that's rebooked in again for next year. So yes, we are seeing return business.
Thank you, Lisa.
Councillor Susan Jones.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, Lisa.
Yeah.
And all I've heard is positive of the arena, and thank you for that. But the only criticism I've heard from members of the public is that leaving the car park after the event has been a bit of an issue. I don't know whether that's still the case, but this is when it first was established. Is that a problem now?
I'll be honest with you, we did have a lot of feedback on the car park when it first became operational. That's went very quiet for us in the venue now, but of course we don't operate it. So I don't know if Lee, you've got any comments on that.
Here. Lee's going to respond. Lee, are you going to respond to that?
Yeah, apologies, I was on mute. Yes, I can say that we took those lessons on board. I think part of the reasoning and the rationale of the overall design, and was pointed out by Will Thomas regarding the traffic there, is we believe it was very well designed to start with, to eliminate as much of the traffic as possible. What we didn't quite get right, we think, is the traffic light system itself on leaving the venue. That's now monitored with extra CCTV cameras, and we're able to do that remotely. So if there is too much of a build-up within the car park, we can very quickly remotely change the traffic light system to allow everybody to egress from the car park and out of Swansea and back home.
Thank you, Lee. It was early on I heard the criticisms, not lately. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you. Can I just ask a bit of a supplementary to the last question, but that's not my question. You say you can control the traffic lights. I hope there's somebody there monitoring it at the time, and also then what effect is it having on the traffic on Oystermouth Road? So that's just from Councillor Sue Jones's comment. But my question is to Lisa, and welcome Lisa, is how many full-time staff do you have now, and how many part-time staff, and are the part-time staff employed by you, or are they on just a contract basis when you have large events?
I'll go first, and then I'll hand over to Lee for the other traffic comment. I love handing traffic comments over to Lee. It's my favourite. Thank you for that question. We've got 26 full-time staff now currently across a range of departments, marketing, F&B, technical, ticketing, creative learning, conference and events. So a really big, strong team. In fact, one of the biggest full-time teams in the company because of the breadth of the sort of events and things that we work on. In regards to casual teams, or we have, it changes every day, as you can imagine. Students come and go, but we have approximately 100 casual staff on our books, and that's across the F&B team, the ticketing team, our stage door team, and our technical team. We also then have third-party contractors that we work with. So our security contract is with the local company Safe Style, and on any one event, we could have up to 75 security in the venue. We work with Vertas, who's our cleaning company, and so we have seven full-time cleaners on our books as well. And then we work with a whole raft of other companies in regards to rigging companies and external lighting companies, etc. I hope that helps answer.
Thank you, Lisa, for reeling all that off. I don't know if I'd remember it all.
And if I could just follow up that as well,
Yes,
Councillor. The majority of the events, of course, finish quite late in the evening, 10:30, 11 o'clock. So at that time, there's not a great deal of traffic on the road. Yes, we can monitor it remotely and see what's going on with all the various cameras. And because of the way in which the traffic light system works through the matrix across the city, we're able to control that on a phased basis. It doesn't have an effect on the other traffic lights and ingress and egress into and from Swansea.
Any other members? Jeff?
Yeah, it's all been good news, you know, with regards to other places in Swansea. I'm talking about the Brangwyn Hall and the what's the name of the theatre? The Grand Theatre and so on. There's always been talk about some of the events that were held there are now actually coming over to you. I can see you've got the graduation ceremony and so on. Do you actually work with these, shall we call them, previous events with regards to, you know, are you in competition or do you actually work with these people?
So we have a very strong relationship with the Swansea Council events team, and we meet monthly to talk about any clashes that might come up. I think when we all first came together as a working group, we had to acknowledge that there were going to be certain events that would move to us. A really good example is comedians. Comedians, the way that a comedian will tour is that they will try and hit every single city and town in the country, and they will just play the biggest venue in that city, no matter what the size is. So Jimmy Carr is a really good example. So he would have went to Swansea Grand on his previous tours because that was the most appropriate place for him to go. But obviously Jimmy Carr then came to us and sold out 2 shows in a row. So it made sense for him to be in a venue of our capacity. And that's ultimately how we have to work. So what we tend to do is if we have events that come to us that have been to other venues before, we will reach out and we'll have a conversation as to whether we think it's appropriate for that artist to move to us. Things like, you know, has their profile changed since they last came to the city? Did they sell out the last time they came? What was the public reaction? And we have actively turned down artists that we feel does not fit in our space, because we understand that some people just want to be in the newest, shiniest venue, and that might not be appropriate. We're very keen to make sure the right artists are going to the right places so that all of the venues are fairly represented. In regards to graduations, it was always part of our business plan that we would fill that gap for the larger scale graduations in the city. So that's how we've approached that.
And as the graduation actually worked, you know, I must admit, you know, I think everybody in Swansea saw the buses and so on actually shipping the students and their families actually up there. Was it a success?
I think we've learned a lot. Graduations are massive operations with things like gowning and photography, and of course other entertainment such as student villages. And I think every single time we've had a graduation, we've tweaked it slightly with the universities and worked with them. And we've tried different things, having photography off-site, having gowning off-site, etc. And I think we've got to a point now that it's a very balanced approach. So we're using multiple venues, but of course, the bigger graduations get, it's all about just having everyone sat in that one hall for that graduation ceremony, and then all of the other things have to be worked on outside of that.
Good.
Councillor Robert Francis Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Lisa for her honesty in response to all the questions. I think it's been very positive for Swansea, its first year. But also thank Lisa for the way she's worked with the management of the Grand Theatre and the Brangwyn Hall. Lisa actually sits on the bid board with me, and we were only talking last week in a meeting where looking at the graduations, how we can work closely together using perhaps a banquet, for parents and their sons or daughters who are graduating in the Brangwyn, and at the same time having the graduation in the arena or a conference. The conference facilities have been very good and exceptional, but trying to turn around an arena from seated and the conference exhibition space, and most people in this room have been to conferences, whether they political conferences or what. It's quite normal to have a banquet in a separate position, and we are blessed in Swansea, probably having one of the best halls in the Brangwyn Hall that you find anywhere in the country. But it's getting that mix right and working together. We're all working for Swansea. We're not working for the Brangwyn or working for the Grand or working for the arena. It is this Team Swansea approach which has been embraced by all those. And when the Albert Hall opens, the 800 facility there, it's all going to add to the cultural offer in Swansea. And I welcome that. It makes Swansea a better place, better choice. Some people might have mourned at the beginning, perhaps getting out of there. I often go to the football, like Chris Holly there. We know very well. We will sit around for half hour before deciding to leave there, knowing very well everybody can't hit the roads at the same time. And so, therefore, it's being realistic. And any city you go to where you have major events, whether it's 2,500, 3,500 or 15,000, or, it's go to Wembley, there's going to be congestion, that's going to happen. It's impossible to do it. All we can do is plan well. And as Lee said, and I'd like to congratulate Lee and the team in the way they project managed the arena and looking at all the intricacies of traffic management. Yes, a couple of bleeps in the beginning, but then that's what you expect. And that's why you have some of the shows coming on that we build up into which we have the full occupancy to actually iron out some of those problems. So I think it's been a great success. I'm looking forward to even more success from it. We will find a niche, I think, in the market for the arena. But it was encouraging to see Collier's report looking at hotels needed, and they are now saying that Swansea can take another 3 hotels. That isn't by accident. That's because now people that are coming to Swansea, using Swansea, the hotel spaces that are needed in Swansea. It's that extra spend of not just the arena, the theatre, it's our hotels, it's our restaurants, it's our taxis. We're all benefiting from having the arena there. So it's been a great success. So thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Lee, in particular for the way you project manage it.
You've just actually, it's a question I actually asked in council quite a while ago, and you've just mentioned about hotels, and you and I are very well aware, and quite a number of us in this room, all along Oystermouth Road, we used to have very good guest houses. Unfortunately, because of commercial problems, a lot of them have gone through. Is there any way that we are able to help them, do up their bed and breakfast, the boarding houses, because not everybody wants a hotel. Some people would like perhaps a guest house. And is there any scheme that we can now help people, because it's so close to the arena, it's in walking distance, and obviously the views over the bay are fantastic. And I just wondered if we are thinking about helping the hoteliers or anybody that wants to start up.
We got no plan in foreseeable future for, if you're talking about the Oystermouth Road along there, the bed and breakfast. We have, if people want to come and bring in hotels to Swansea, yes, we can look at that. It's the transforming towns grants. We got this Bank of Wales, they can have interest-free loans up to a certain amount of time, to make sure that it can deliver the project. But I am heartened by the Collier's report and the interest now being shown of people wanting to bring hotels to Swansea. We did do the ERF scheme, which was the only city in Wales to bring it, where we were giving money for shop fronts, but that didn't include the Oystermouth Road. And I've got to be honest, I've had no applications from people there saying that they need help. But, if that is a problem, I think that is something that we should look at, possibly further in the Shared Prosperity Fund, if and when that extra money becomes available. There was always more money available under when we were part of Europe. And I know that Councillor Holly is on record, and I'm sure he would agree, that we could get more money that way. But that money is not available. So we are looking at the Shared Prosperity Fund where we can get it and leveling up money. But it's not the same amount of money that we had under Europe. But I wouldn't disagree with your remarks there.
Yeah, thanks. No, fine. I know it's such an interesting topic, and the city has spent so much money actually on this. It's got to be a success at the end of the day. We were talking about hotels. What's the position with regards to the hotel between?
It's in the next bit.
Yes.
It's in the next bit.
It's in the next bit, right? And I must admit I haven't read the Collier's report, so there we are. We'll wait for the next bit then.
Finally, well, I think I've read it online. I don't know if we have it. Anyway, first of all, thank you very much, Lisa, for all your answers. I think Jeff was alluding to it. It was a huge investment by the city into this building and the facilities it does. So the amount of interest in it is enormous. About my interest really, other than the Collier's report, which it's going to talk about later, is about the financial return that the council will have from ticket sales and profit share. I understand that, in the public domain, there's very little can be said about that because of the commercial confidentiality. But I'd just like you to confirm that the ticket sales, there is a percentage that comes back to the city. And also there is at some stage, and I think it's after the 3rd and 4th years, there is a profit share element that will be done on an open book basis with the council.
That's correct. So as it stands, in our current financial situation, we obviously pay rent back to the council on the building. We also pay a service charge for Copper Bay to feed into that. From the moment we opened, we also had a ticket share agreement in place. And there's also, for our VIP loges, a share of that also goes back to the council. So even before the profit share comes into fruition, there is already money going back in to the local authority. The profit share isn't based on a yearly agreement, it's based on a number. And of course, as you can expect in regards to ATG, we're now doing all of that remodeling based on the current industry to pinpoint when that will be. And that's something that I'll be working on with Lee and his team.
Confirm it's the profit share from the arena in Swansea, not ATG's profit rate?
Correct, yes.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other comments? If not, Hugh Mowbray.
Just one quick comment. It's worth saying that sort of the PR position which Swansea's now in with the arena open and trading, what's that's done for the UK status, Swansea status across the UK is really positive. And Urban Splash confirmed that they wouldn't have bid for Swansea unless they'd seen the progress being made with the arena and the ambition of the regeneration agenda in Swansea. So it's brought in partners like Urban Splash, which frankly wouldn't have looked at Swansea substantially before this had actually happened. So and the likes of Milligan, who's one of their partners as well. So there's a lot of positive benefits of the arena being seen across the UK. And just having been to the Reef conference in Leeds, there was a lot of very positive noise about Swansea across the conference, and people are now interested in looking at sort of opportunities in this part of the world, which is really positive.
Thank you. I actually heard that about 15 years ago, and literally the same terminology, and from about very similar type of people as well. I don't want to put a damper on it, but it's all well and good having all this really great confidence boosters from very much developer. It's when they put their money where their mouths are is when people should start taking it. And we have seen some people do that anyway.
I think it's just watch this space on that, because there's a lot of exciting stuff coming through with Urban Splash.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's it, can we move on to? Thank you again, Lisa, for attending. You're more than welcome to stay, but I'm sure you've got far more interesting things to do than sit here and listen to us. And thank you, Lee. The next item on the agenda is the Regeneration Programme Project Monitoring. Councillor Robert Francis Davis, do you want to say anything before I bring in Mr. Hugh Mowbray?
No, I'll hand over to Hugh Mowbray. He's more up to date than I am, although we do meet probably every other day. But reserve the right to come back after.
Okay. Hugh.
Thank you, Chair. If I run through these quickly, first one's Copper Bay, which all the progress that's being made at the moment to finalise all the works is getting there. So that's really positive. There has been some scaffolding erected to linked into the repairing some of the steel work in the car park, and that's going to be completed by the end of this year. The commercial tenants, we're just about hopefully going to get the occupation of those units handed over to us in the next month. So those will start opening, which is going to be a real positive, and that will help support not only the arena but the tenants in the park as well, which is great. And then sort of any sort of incomplete works are being prioritised. The spiral stairs are now complete, and so there's snagging underway, but that's going really well, and that's going to be finished very shortly. So I think it's a positive story at the moment.
Any comments on the first item, which is Copper Bay? Anyone? Oh, Jeff.
Yeah, the scaffolding, there's been a problem with the metal worker. I don't know what they're actually called, like the copper sheeting and so on the outside. That's nothing to do with that.
It's not it's the actual steel work, and it's only a paint issue, so it's not
right.
There's no structure or any other issues, and that's being resolved, and that will all be completed by Christmas time.
Okay. That's caused a delay, though, is it?
There has been some delay, yes.
Some delay.
Yes,
Okay.
Unfortunately, but
with regards to the commercial tenants, they're actually talking about awaiting occupation, so they're actually signed up then.
Yes.
Yeah. Who are these people?
I'm not sure I can actually say that at the moment, because they would have to we have to agree that with them before we can say it in the public domain. But what I can say is that sort of they're all local businesses, and we've got so many good quality local businesses. We've been inundated, to be honest, when people are interested in going to these units. So I think it's a positive position. And obviously, Chair, we can deal with the names in a private session if that was what you wanted to do at a later date.
I know there's a coffee shop amongst them. If you want that information, and I think it should be later on in the meeting when we're in private session. Okay. Anyone else on Copper Bay? No.
Okay. Shaping Swansea. This is the partnership. This is the name for the procurement we went out on, and we appointed Urban Splash through that. St Thomas, they're progressing, which is the 7-acre site in the Riverside. They're progressing a master plan for that, and we're looking at potential partners who they will work with on that site to make sure it's a sustainable site and it's got as best a mix of tenures that we can across the site, and that's that's progressing. Harvard, Urban Splash have now appointed architects to look at the master plan for that, and they're working with our teams, and obviously that's been fed into discussions with the Luff projects as well to make sure we got a joined up approach on that. So that's really positive. We've had a number of meetings with the Design Commission for Wales in terms of the process which Urban Splash will go through, and obviously sort of the input of the Design Commission into some of those process aspects, which is going to be an ongoing approach. We've been working with the Design Commission for about 13 years already, so that's really just a continuation of what's gonna happen. SPF, there is a shared prosperity fund. There is a bid which is made into that for some workup costs to support some of the schemes, so that we're waiting for that to be finalised. And basically we're just we're waiting for Urban Splash to provide us with a detailed programme and delivery strategy to move forward, which again is something which will be a substantial document, and it will be sort of something which drives forward development for Swansea.
Okay, any questions or comments on the Shaping Swansea paragraph?
Okay,
the one.
Sorry.
You know, with regards to Urban Splash, I can remember many years ago, you know, we used to have, shall we say, seminars, you know, with regards to, you know, updates on projects, you know, perhaps some of these external companies who come in to give us an update. Is there any chance? I know we've had Lisa from ATG or AEG, whatever they're called, here today. What about Urban Splash? Is it possible for them to actually update us on progress, even if it's in a closed meeting?
I think it may be a bit earlier.
I think yes, it's probably not quite the right time for that, but I'm sure that they would be more than prepared to do that. And Jonathan Falkenham, who's one of the co-founders of Urban Splash, is very, very involved in Swansea. He did his O-levels and A-levels in Swansea. And I think it was Gowerton he went to.
I didn't know we were scrutinising education.
But I think it's a positive for Swansea because he did live here. He doesn't live here anymore. He's in Liverpool now, but he's bought into the city, which is really important for any developers. So I'm sure that he would be more than happy to look at doing that in due course.
Yeah, I think it's the question. I see that there's a number of master plans that are being. Is the master plan for the Shape in Swansea to cover St Thomas and the Harvard? Is that the same one, or is it two separate ones?
No, they're all. There is a river corridor strategy, but the Harvard one will obviously link into that, and it needs to address some of those issues in terms of linkages across the city, which is important to flag up. But there will then be separate master plans for each of the major schemes in terms of St Thomas.
And St Thomas is the railway station site?
Yes, 7 acres on the waterfront there, yes.
Right. What about the Dylan Thomas site? Is that included in it? The car park outside Dylan Thomas.
That is one of their projects, but
Yeah.
that's not in the current sort of
That's not
of development. That's
right.
Further down because there are 10, 15 flooding issues with that which need to be addressed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Councillor Paxton Williams, I'll come back on.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quickie, really, while we're in the sort of Harvard area. Obviously, we've been talking about having a footpath going up from the bridge, basically up to as far as the Liberty, or sorry, Swansea.com, I should say. I just want to make sure that hasn't been forgotten, and particularly the access to it as time goes on. But it needs to be in place, and we just need to be assured that's going to happen, please.
No, absolutely. There's been a lot of work done that recently. Colleagues and engineers have done site investigations for the last bit in the jigsaw to make that work. So that is being considered in detail, and obviously the Luff bid will address some of these issues as well across the Harvard site.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry. Paxton, have you finished?
Sorry, I just said thank you for Chris.
Okay, on the Levelling Up Fund project, which is the Lower Swansea Valley Harvard connection, we've seen some photographs, I'm assuming, of what the projection is. Are Urban Splash involved in that as well, or is it a separate one?
Well, it's obviously been led by the council through Paul Ralph's team, but we have a monthly meeting with that team and with Urban Splash to make sure there's a fully joined up approach. And obviously the master plan which is produced will be produced in conjunction with the Luff team as well, and so it will address the wider area and what's happening with Luff to make sure it's all joined up, and we can and they will then sort of their architects who are working on this at the moment will provide us with a clear wider master plan for the site as well.
Is the Levelling Up Fund, has it got a finite time on it?
Yes.
So, and we have to put money into that as well?
There is a limited amount, I believe, in terms of match funding, but that's something you'd have to talk to Paul and Ralph about.
Right, and that also, does that include the Urban Splash element of it as well?
No, that's completely separate.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Councillor Sue Jones?
All I'm asking is the Shared Prosperity Fund bid. When are we expecting that to be decided, or have you not got a date?
I haven't got a date, but I'm told it's it's imminent. Yes, it should be this week.
Oh, it's imminent then.
Imminent, yes.
Lovely, thank you.
Swansea Central North?
Yeah.
Swansea Central North?
Swansea Central North, which is the old St David's site area. It's obviously sort of an office-led scheme. There's capacity there for about 350,000 square foot of offices. We've got some really positive tenant engagement on that at the moment on a number of blocks, and there's discussions going on, which is being led by Urban Splash and their partners Milligan. So that's that is moving forward. We've completed sort of stage 1 designs on the initial building, which would be for the council and Welsh Government, and we're looking at sort of the strategy which I mentioned earlier, really about how we actually deliver all of these interesting projects, and how we look at it in terms of, you have one architect, you have different architects, and that's a discussion which we've got going on with Urban Splash at the moment to actually sort of make sure it's a really interesting and very positive, award-winning, hopefully, scheme for Swansea in that respect. St David's design work is progressing on that, which is good. Funding, we've had a number of meetings with funding. That was one of the positives coming out of the Reef conference, and we had meetings with a number of with at least 4 funders during that period, as well as other developers, which again comes back to the comment I was making about the interest in Swansea at the moment, which is positive. And these guys, they want to engage in terms of being involved in the regeneration of Swansea. We're looking at sort of a second round levelling up bid for the city centre as well. We mentioned the Shared Prosperity Fund bid already. There are interdependencies in terms of decant from the civic centre into the new build to allow that to be released for Urban Splash, to look at the civic centre site, which is one of the 7 sites which they've got. So I think, you know, we're in detailed discussion at the moment on contractual agreements. We're in what's called well, it's a high level strategic agreement with Urban Splash. We entered into that last year, but out of that there are individual development agreements for each of the sites, and we're working on heads of terms for each of those, not for all the 7 at the moment, but for the initial sites to move forward. And obviously we're looking at sort of funding solutions for elements of these projects to enable them to move forward. So I think there's a really positive chat going on with Urban Splash and their partners, and hopefully we'll get stuff on site next year.
I think one of the questions that really needs to be asked about the offices and the, you know, we're expecting the offices to be populated by both the Welsh Government and ourselves, the council. So what sort of timescale are we looking about that? Because obviously, if they are built and they decant from the civic centre, there's a timescale and an apps element within that. That's the first one. The Shared Prosperity Fund, what are we actually bidding for on that?
Yeah, but
And the other one is the leveling up. We've had one. I'm not sure many other places have had more than one, apart from Cardiff, obviously.
yeah, there have been across the country, and we had a meeting recently with the UK government, and they were encouraging us to put further ones forward. In terms of the SPF, that is just as a small element, small bit of money to work up some of the For the More, the route to the sea, in more detail, to how that links with the arena and how it links into the civic centre, etc., which is quite important. And I've forgotten what the third question was. Sorry.
It's about the leveling up. Sorry, I've had that one about the funding from the Shared Prosperity Fund and how that would fit in.
Yeah, that's money which is for this For the More to do some workup cost to make sure to see how it works in detail, and it's basically money to allow us to get more meat on the bones in terms of detail to put in the levelling up bid as well for the future. So it's working with Urban Splash. They're obviously putting their own money in as well, but it's then sort of having a clear plan and strategy which is deliverable to move things forward.
So effectively, what we're going to be using that money for is to help with the development scheme, so that they can put together within their master plan for that element of the shaping. Okay, fair enough. Anyone else? No.
Sorry. You mentioned there's room for 3 hotels in Swansea in the future. Have you got any idea where these might be?
Coming on to that.
Okay, sorry, come on the next slide. Okay.
Okay.
Aoife.
71, 70 the Kingsway. There are
Which is warmer than this building,
is it? It is very much warmer, because I've just been on the 4th floor up a very rickety staircase, which frightened me to death. But it's really coming on well at the moment. They're up to the 4th floor, so it's only the roof to go in terms of an additional bit, and it'll be wind and watertight by about October, is the current position. We've got the usual. We've got some claims, and those need to be settled, which are usual. It's day-to-day management of a project like this, to be honest with you. So that's an ongoing process. The yard between 71, 72 and the HESA project in terms of biophilic, that's being worked on at the moment, and it's nice to see the tower coming up from the HESA building, and it starts to define the space which is there. So we were obviously working quite closely with HESA on that to move things forward. We've got sort of branding consultants and marketing consultants appointed to undertake the detailed marketing, and there will be some marketing sort of materials available fairly shortly on that, which we can obviously bring to this group. We've got a number of occupiers which are interested. There's it's quite exciting at the moment. Actually, I can't name any names at the moment, but that's going particularly well. So that's and it just shows that there's no buildings of this quality in Swansea at the moment, and that's part of the demand, which is, the people talk about the demise of the office, but people are now looking at sort of probably a less amount of space, but good quality space. That's what this provides. And having just been on the 4th floor, it's got views to you can see the sea, you can see the sweep of the bay in Mumbles, you can see the arena. It's really, really good, the views from the building, which is really positive. So I think that's all going well at the moment, and it's going to be a flagship building for Swansea.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Jeffrey?
I know you even put my hand up. Yeah, I'm glad it's actually going on. I assume it's on schedule anyway, or roughly on schedule.
Yeah.
You got current interest from potential occupiers. Actually reading in the press, the demand for office space seems to have plummeted, in quite a few places and so on. Especially with people working from home and so on. There seems to be a change in culture and so on. I know I asked the leader this some time ago, and he said there was about a 20% take up really of the occupancy at that time. You know, I don't know what it is now and so on. From what you actually put down there, it looks as if there's interest in perhaps 100%. Perhaps you can clarify what the interest is. But these people that are actually interested, are they relocating from other parts of Swansea, or to take up this you say much needed office space, or are they newcomers to the area?
It's that the answer to that is a bit of a mixture, to be honest with you, because there isn't enough good quality office space, so there may be some people moving out of poor quality space into better space. There are definitely new people who are coming into Swansea as well, so it's that's really positive. And the decline of offices is very much overstated, to be honest, understated, to be honest, in terms of overstated. Sorry, but I guess the issue is that there was during COVID, people didn't know what the future was, and that was a serious dent in people. Lots of companies are now sort of getting their staff back to the offices, and they're insisting on that. They're probably looking for better quality space and smaller amount of space than they were previously. But the demand we're getting not only for 7172 the Kingsway, but also for the Swansea Central North area is very substantial, and that is I've got no doubt over a period of time we can fill all of these offices. There is so much demand at the moment. We're starting from a low base in Swansea, to be honest, in terms of lack of space. But I think the council's commitment to building sort of things like 7172 has really sort of piqued the interest in Swansea and the Palace Theatre as well. So there's lots of interest, which is coming out of the woodwork. And I'm very confident we're gonna get very good rents, and it's going to be well let as well in terms of moving forward. So we've got 3 or 4 significant leads at the moment, which we've got heads of terms being discussed with. So I'm confident this building will let up.
So you're actually talking about 3 or 4 occupiers then?
Yeah, 3 or 4 different, probably more than that actually in reality at the moment.
Yeah.
You've obviously got to talk to a number of people. Not everybody will translate into signed deals, but there is significant interest. So and this is having walked around the building today, obviously it's nowhere near finished. It is a really, really high class building. It's got some really good spaces, and it's going to be really attractive, and the views from the upper floors are going to be very attractive for tenants who wanted to occupy these buildings as well. So it's got a lot going for it.
So when is the actual completion date for this? Is expected?
The construction completion will be around the end of March. And there is a bit of fit out work to do after that in terms of fitting out elements. So between the first and second quarter of next year, it'll start being occupied.
Okay, and I know it says 71, 72, but there was a bank next to it, wasn't there? What's happening with that?
Barclays
Barclays,
Bank, yeah.
sorry. Yeah. What's happening with that now?
That's owned by the council along with the next 2 buildings, and we were going to take that forward as part of that scheme. However, we've now got a lot of private sector interest in that, so we're likely to be marketing that to the private sector over the course of the next few months.
Thanks.
Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you. You mentioned the HASA building behind. Do we work with them? Because I'm trying to think now, because obviously I sit on planning, and it was very interesting when it came to planning. And that's office space, if I recall. Is there some commercial, and there was some private dwellings? Because I remember saying who's going to make sure that the biophilic wall is always looked after, and we're not going to end up with a load of mould.
No, absolutely. It's a very interesting scheme. It's we're in partnership with them in some respects, because part of it's built on the council land. The tower, which is the new core, which has been built to access the building, is on council land. It's as you say, it's got a lot of green space. They've actually signed a deal with the university to manage some of that green space, so that gives us confidence in that. And they're looking to replicate it across Swansea as well. They'd like to do this in more locations, so it's going to be a very positive building in terms of the way it faces onto Lower Oxford Street, etc. So and it, the tower have been from the site. It's really flying up in terms of the concrete structure which is there. So it's getting there. It's going to be a very much complementary to 71, 72. There's a public square between them, and we're obviously going to be opening up the link between the Kingsway through to Oxford Street, which we bought the buildings and created that probably 3 or 4 years ago now. But that's obviously not going to open until the buildings are ready to be able to access in that respect. So yeah.
Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just a point of interest. Since everyone is now being urged to get on a bike and leave their cars behind, will there be spaces for parking of bikes in the Kingsway building? And what about things like showers? Because if you have cycled a distance to get to the office, maybe you would appreciate a freshening up opportunity. So I'm just interested, is anything being done to ensure that all the new cyclists are going to be catered for? Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. I think the answer is thankfully yes. There are showers, there are bike spaces. There is also going to be put in charging for electric bikes into the area as well. So it's all in the grand plan for the building. Yes, so it's being catered for.
What? No, Robert. Sorry, Councillor Davis. No need for that. Anyone else on this one? No, here a couple of questions. Number one, obviously the development that's going on in the Princess Way is going to create the same type of offices, so we are told. So the adverts, high class, what have you. And I think your comment about we starting off from a very low base is correct. If we go back 20 years ago, many of the office dwellers that were in the city moved out. The banks moved out, and they're all in the enterprise zone because of free parking, etc., and the offices. How are we going to attract, or are we going to attract back any of them, or are we looking for new customers? The reason I ask that is because one of the comments that was made by the business community, and I can remember this vividly, was the parking facilities that were available for many of the buildings that were available in Swansea. So saying, I'm not going to repeat what Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald said about getting on your bike, because I have a feeling that many of these individuals are young, reportedly young entrepreneurs who will probably use bicycles, but we'll see. But the reality is, how are we going to attract them if they need parking spaces? Admittedly, there may be some available along with 71, 72 Kingsway, but generally speaking, we are lacking in that area.
Yes, and I think one of the fundamental questions about 71, 72 is should the basement have had car parking built into it? But in terms of the council's policy and sort of the zero carbon and the way that companies are going now, lots of them don't want car parking anymore. They're changing their views on lots of this, and there isn't car park. As you say, there is more car park in the area. You've got the NCP across the road. You've got other council car parks. So there are areas which can be used for that. But in terms of 71, 72 is aimed at tech industries, which, as you say, is quite often younger people. And most of them haven't got cars, leave alone sort of wanting car parking spaces. That's why we're coming back to the bicycle side of things. There is substantial allowances for having the bike store, having the showers, having electric charging for bikes as well, which is obviously a growing part of the of that industry. So it's there's a lot of positives in terms of people not having their cars and bringing them into the city centre, and obviously sort of the knock-on effects in terms of changing the public transport aspect is really important for the city centre moving forward as well.
That would be a huge step forward, whether or not that'll ever happen. Right, anyone else? Councillor Will Thomas.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Just a very quick one on that. I remember when I looked at the plans last, we were discussing, I think it's Salubrious Passage, not Salubrious Passage, sorry. What's the name of the arcade? Picton Arcade?
Yeah.
Alongside it, Picton, is it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Picton Arcade, I think it is. I was concerned about the level of footfall would considerably drop there, because obviously there's a cut through to the Kingsway, and the leader, I remember, said at the time that we were thinking about putting an entrance in the side of that. I'm just seeing if that got progressed at all.
That is still being progressed, if I'm being honest. There's a discussion. There's big level differences between Picton Arcade and where 71, 72. So we're currently doing some surveys on that to check the actual levels and how we can address some of those issues. But that is an ongoing discussion.
Okay, well.
Yeah, thank you. I think it would be beneficial though for the traders in there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move on then? Castle Square?
Yeah, Castle Square, very simply, we've now got the tenders in for this, so those have been analysed, which it'll be the next scheme to start on site in essence once we've got that, once we've got sort of the tenders analysed, and we're very clear on the position in terms of who we will select as the preferred tenderer to move that forward.
Have the funding for that is purely simply council funding, is it not?
It's council funding, but there is quite a substantial element of Welsh Government support into that as well.
In what aspect?
In terms of grant money towards the overall scheme.
Is that the place making money?
It's transforming towns, yes.
Transforming town.
Yeah.
Obviously we can't discuss the figures, but we will at some stage need to discuss the figures.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Paxton O'Williams and then Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald. Paxton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm taking the opportunity while we talked about Castle Square to bring up Wine Street, actually. I did have a walk down there the other day, and I came past the castle, and there were a lot of information boards outside the castle. We were promised public information put down to Wine Street when that work was being done. I think the work is largely completed in Wine Street at the moment. Where are we now in terms of putting that information in place, please?
Yeah, that was raised, and yeah, so I need to chase that up. You know, as you're probably aware, we had the member of staff dealing with that had to sadly retire on ill health, and we have had some resource issues. But I will chase that up and come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wendy Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's just a general query. I think it's something that many people are asking. Is there ever going to be a day when the former, I'll say, David Evans building, which is a dominant structure adjoining the square, is going to be without scaffolding? It seems to have been covered in scaffolding for years. It doesn't look good in the city centre. Is anything going to be done about it? Thank you.
I think yes, it's a private sector matter. It's nothing to do with the council, but I 100% agree with you that it's something which needs to be resolved. I understand that it is going to be resolved, but that is an issue for the
I don't think it's advisable here to say anything more about this, because it is a legal matter and a legal issue which goes back many years.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Councillor Mark Tribe.
Thank you, Chair. I think Wendy just stole my thunder. I was going to ask exactly the same question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Councillor David Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. Just to ask, what sort of timescales are we looking at to get that Castle Square back into the picturesque that it deserves? Looking forward to it, but what sort of timescales are we talking about? As somebody who's been staring out on that for 43 years, I'm very keen to see it upgraded.
Yeah, well, as I said, we're in the process of analysing the tenders at the moment. It should start on site early next year, and it's about 18 months contract. So within the next 2 years, it should be complete. It increases the green space substantially. It goes from about 20% up to about 41%. So the type of planting and green space will be increased significantly from what it is now back towards the direction which you will remember it from many years ago. So, but it's still going to be a place which has got some hard elements where it will where people with Swansea can celebrate, protest, etc., which was part of the part of the original sort of requirements for the square. So you've got fountains there which you can turn off, and it's going to be very different, and hopefully it's going to be putting sort of giving it a reason for being, which is it's lost over the years in reality. So with a couple of cafe restaurants in there as well, it's going to be a very interesting space, which is really well designed, very good architects, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen as well as yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. Then we come on to the Skyline project.
Yeah, there's a lot of work being done on this at the moment, which Lee is largely leading on this, and we're waiting for sort of the outcome of registration of land to be able to take things forward. Basically, Skyline are doing a lot of work in terms of their planning consent and getting ready for that. So it's going in the right direction, but there's a lot of things we need to do to get this on site. And obviously, we mentioned earlier the opposition. There's obviously a lot of public support for this as well from people. So, and these people will also have their day in the sun in terms of the planning application and any sort of and any comments they want to make on that.
Comments or questions? Councillor Jeff Jones?
Yeah, I'm just going to ask, this is a big project. Is all the funding actually in place for this? And if it is, what exactly is the breakdown of the funding for it?
The funding is in place. It's largely private sector funding from Skyline. There are other elements which I'm not sure I can comment on at the moment in terms of this meeting.
I think a lot of these issues we may have to bring back to a closed meeting, especially if it's, we know there's government funding on it. We've already commented about that, the private sector funding, but there may be other elements of funding in it as well. But I think at the end of the day, it would be better if we, as much as possible, can be put in the public domain, so the public have confidence that we're actually doing the jobs for them as opposed to actually paying somebody else. Okay. Anyone else on Skyline? Anyone? No, I think the only thing really is it's a question of time, isn't it? It's, this has been going on now for 3 years, and I suspect will be going on for another couple of years anyway before it's finally bottomed out. Okay, the next on the project, Powerhouse redevelopment, Harwood Cobbleworks.
Yeah, Powerhouse, this is now complete. It's been handed over to Skyline. Sorry, to Skyline, to Penderyn, wrong company, sorry. And they had a soft opening for Father's Day, and it's going to formally open later this week, which is really exciting. And the images I've seen on their website, it's looking really good. They've done a really good job of fitting out, and it's another one which is going to feed into the master plan we discussed earlier for the Havard area, and these are catalyst projects, really, this and Skyline, for creating a bigger destination in the Havard area, which is fantastic.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Robson.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I will be there on the 13th on Thursday now to the official opening of this, and I've had a little preview, and it looks spectacular. And I think that the work that Penderyn have done there is really going to enhance the Swansea's heritage. And the contractor weavers have done a great job on the way that these buildings are being restored. Penderyn, I think, will be a huge attraction in that area. There's going to be a bottling plant as well for up to 1 million bottles a year going out of there. But I really look forward to it. And later on the same paper, the Levelling Up Fund, where we're going to be doing up the laboratory building. It's great to see these buildings being brought back to life with a good end use of it as well. And I'd like to perhaps pay tribute to people like Paul Ralph and the team that have worked tirelessly on these projects. These just don't happen. It's hours, months, years of work in actually making sure that these applications get brought in, negotiations with people like the Heritage Lottery Fund, bringing everybody together, making sure that the interest keeps go in during this long periods to get this project off the ground. So I really look forward to it, and I would encourage everybody to get up there and see it as soon as they can.
Okay. Councillor Mike.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Not so the question, but a comment really. And I'm very grateful because, as you know, that area of the city was very, very run down for many years, and was closing of the works as well. And it has really revitalised that area of Harvard there. And as I say, it has really put us on the map, and I'm grateful for the investment that has come into the area as a ward member.
I think, yeah, it's sounds very positive. I haven't been in there myself. I've seen the outside of it. Obviously, I went in there when it was a working factory, unfortunately. And you know, having grown up in the area as well, knowing very well what it's like. So when Councillor Robert Francis Davis invites us all down there to have a look around, he may even offer us, and Richard, you can come as well, and he may even offer us a drop of whiskey, you never know. Okay, enough of frivolity. Can we move on to the Palace Theatre?
Yeah, again, this is moving forward as a private sector project. Again, being on site. Some of the sorry, apologies. Yeah, so this is moving forward well with a private sector developer. So that's it's on site, and the various conservation bodies want to come to Swansea to look at case studies of how Swansea has moved some of these old buildings forward into being brought back into life. So it's again, it's a really positive position to be in terms of the Palace Theatre, which is being saved as a historic building.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robert Francis Davis.
Yeah, I was fortunate last night to be at the Fellows Dinner of the University of Wales Trinity St David's, and I know Councillor Mary Jones was there accompanying the Lord Mayor. And I was sitting next to the chairman of an architectural practice, very large one in the country with 10 different offices throughout the country. And he said, oh, what's happening in Swansea? Everybody I talked to said, you know, people should come to Swansea to see how to bring back heritage buildings, because it is unique what we are doing here. When you get somebody who's his actual office is in Cardiff, but praising the work done in Swansea on the heritage buildings. But that is, I think, the hard work, as I said earlier, of the officers that we've got and the calibre of officers that we have in Swansea. The Palace Theatre is one of only two what they call flat iron theatres left in the country. We've been taking off the at-risk from the historic buildings. There's lots of praise being showered upon Swansea for what's happening there, and the old Yorkshire period metal site and the Albert Hall. Doesn't come without the hard work, and you know, I'm really pleased that the work has been put in by our officers. So I'd like to put that on record.
Thank you very much. I think it's also fair to say the amount of money invested by the people of Swansea, and I think that's something that tends to be forgotten. That the people of this city are investing huge amounts of money in many of these projects, and it's for the benefit of the city. And I think that's what we should be thankful for, that we're investing that money. And I think it's up to us as councillors to ensure that money is invested wisely so that it does benefit the people of Swansea.
Yeah, and I think then the people of Swansea, I think, appreciate its heritage, and there are certain areas of Swansea which, you know, these buildings have fallen into decay. They are grade 2 listed buildings. We have a duty to look after those grade 2 listed buildings, but it's not easy to look after the amount of grade 2 listed buildings unless you've got a use that is a sustainable use after. And that is convincing people like Heritage Lottery that We're asking for money, we're asking for investment, but then there's going to be a sustainable use at the end of it, and that's where we get that money. So the people of Swansea, I think, are happy to put money in. It creates jobs, it creates wealth, but it's something that they can look back and with pride, and also community. The community is uplifted to have buildings there they can be proud of, rather than buildings that are decaying. So I think that will make a huge difference to the Upper High Street and to the Harvard area. Probably the Harvard area during the Industrial Revolution was more like a moonscape. And I think we forget that what we've done over the years with the barrows across the river is always full of water, salmon back in there. We got the largest urban forest in Britain up the valley, the greening of it. You look at the Fenrod Lake. We take it for granted what we've done, but I think as a council, over the last 30, 40 years, you know, we deserve a pat on the back. That's all of us, I think, for supporting these projects and making sure that Swansea is a better place to live in.
But you know, we have to accept the fact that the Lower Swansea Valley was the most desolated and industrial wasteland in Europe. You know, I can remember the moonscape, but that's beside. We've moved on from that. Can we, before we go any further, on the levelling up on Lower Swansea Valley, can we again mention about the hotels? Because I know Councillor Michael Locke and a few others asked about it, about the Collier's report. Collier's report was a very much cured egg report, but over to you.
The Collier's report I thought was an excellent report. It was led by leisure and tourism colleagues, and obviously fed in from Regeneration and other parts of the council. So it was a cross-council sort of support for the whole report. It did look at the potential for in excess of 300 new rooms across the city, in terms of that was led by what's happened in terms of the arena, etc., etc. So in terms of what Lisa was saying earlier on about conferencing, conferencing is growing. But you know, the one I was in recently in Leeds had 6,500 people there. We haven't got the hotel rooms at the moment to be able to do that. So it's so developing new hotel rooms is really important for Swansea and the city. So the report demonstrated there is potential for lots of new hotel space, and there is lots of interest in hotel space from various operators at various levels across the various sort of budget, mid-market, and upper level. There is demand from lots of these these operators, and obviously the hotel in next to the arena in Swansea is something which we're working substantially on, and that is making a lot of progress. It'll be built by the private sector, but it does need elements of support to make it work. So those elements are just about in place. So we're hoping that that can move forward fairly quickly, and we need to be looking at sort of marketing other sites for further hotels to come into Swansea. And you know, with the way the market works, you know, when you get your first major one off the ground, which will be the one next to the arena, the other brands will start to take notice, and they'll want representation within the town as well. So that is an important process which we need to go through and get the first one committed and on site, which hopefully is going to be fairly shortly.
The gap funding will be made up by Welsh Government or Welsh Tourist Board or wherever.
We were in discussions with Visit Wales, which is part of the tourism element of Welsh Government. Yes.
Okay. The fact is that we probably will need another 300 rooms, but it didn't give a time scale, did it?
I can't remember the detail, but it's, you know, it's certainly within the next sort of 5 to 10 years, I think, was the discussions we had during the meeting, the workup. But it's certainly sort of something which is deliverable. I don't think, you know, I think there will be demand. It's just getting the first one off the ground, and in a way that's, you know, the people follow that, and they will want their, you know, the various, whatever the brand we have as the first hotel, then others will want to follow. And you know, we know that the existing Marriott Hotel will probably be refurbishing off the back of this as well, because it sees the competition coming into Swansea.
Okay, thank you. Anyone any comment? Then moving on to levelling up from Lower Swansea Valley. We've done quite a bit of that, I
Yeah,
think.
And I think the date there has been extended by government as well.
It has, is it?
Yes, and I think it's 2026, but I need to absolutely check that out.
Okay. And the laboratory is a separate project as well, is it not?
It's part of the levelling up process,
is,
but it will, this is Paul Ralph's team are looking at this, and this will, I understand the laboratory will probably start on site in the summer.
The Strand Arches is an interesting project. Access to it, it showed an external lift, coming out by High Street Station, I am assuming.
I think that's the case, yes, yeah. I think if you want some more detail on this, it's probably worth asking Paul Ralph to attend.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you look at, opposite where that lift is going, where the bypass basically is going up through with the amount of student accommodation it is now there, that is going to link in. And if we look at the Teen student accommodation, which is under construction now, and I think there's about 500 rooms there, isn't there? The 700 rooms in the right by the station there, and then the Old Way House, huge amount of student population living in the city that will transform the High Street and hopefully the Strand as well with the arches. And I can see sort of little tech cafes and what have you being developed, but students will want to use. Hopefully, let's make it see it'll be transformative, because it's all part of that heritage corridor right the way up the River Tower from the old museum basically, and pontoons going to be on the river. I think already people will be looking at sort of river taxis, to complement the copper jack that's already there, so more tours, I think, up the river.
Okay. I don't think there's anything else unless anybody's got any comments. No?
Chris, can I just say,
So,
we've got so much student accommodation coming, but in the summer that could be used for tourists to rent rooms that were occupied by students earlier in the year. So it looks good for Swansea to have more rooms in that area as well. Just a comment.
okay, thank you. There are a couple of organisations that do rent out student accommodation, but normally it's on the campus, isn't it? It's as opposed to being in anywhere, any other building.
There are some in central. Yeah, there are some in central London as well, like London School of Economics halls, which are not part of the campus, which they rent out. But I think it's a really positive thing for Swansea. You've got these spaces in the summer, which links in with what ATG are going to sort of do with more conferencing as well. And we need to encourage more conferencing to come into Swansea.
Yeah.
Okay. That being the case, we have now. Can I thank both you and Councillor Robert Francis Davis for attending and having and being so constructive and positive with their answers. Thank you. The next item on the agenda are Councillor Mark Tribe.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say, it's been great to be part of such an uplifting and positive meeting. But just an observation, really. I had a couple of visitors down again recently, and they love Swansea. They think they will live it down the whole area. But they did make an observation regarding street signs around the city centre, where some were missing, some were obscured, some were damaged. Is there a current scheme where road signs in the city centre are inspected? Because they do rely on these visual signs to find their way around the town. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's part of the remit of highways. So happy to take that back and sort of drop a line to Stuart Davis, head of highways, on that to look at those issues.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay.
The next time you have your visitors down, introduce them to all the great cultural offers we have in Swansea.
But do leave out Councillor Robert Francis Davis, okay?
He's top on my list. He's top on my list.
Okay. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the annual work plan review. Okay. and the letters. The one thing I would like to say before we finish is that we have a scrutiny programme committee next week where we are going to have a discussion, and I think there will be a decision made about the merging of both the Development and Regen Committee and the Finance and Performance Committee meeting. There scrutiny boards. There will be a 2-monthly change in the way in which we act and the way in which we bring forward plans. As you can see, the regeneration programme is such that really you don't need one every month, because the movement on these plans is very, very short. Is very, very small, and every 2 months we feel is more than enough to actually scrutinise these projects. Whereas finance is virtually the same because of the way in which the quarter reports come back. And as for performance, lately the performance reports have been virtually useless because of COVID and the way in which the Welsh Government have changed the performance data. So as a result, we are going to have, as long as the Scrutiny Programme Committee agree next Monday, we will start the new programme after next week with a combined Scrutiny Programme Committee. And Councillor Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, for those who attended the annual conference work plan, this was a proposal that we put forward for the new committee, because as I say, but we also will make sure that the workload is also manageable for that committee as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all, and thank you very much for attending this afternoon. I know it's been quite long; it's been an hour and a half, but I think you'll all agree that the items that we are discussing are extremely important for our city. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you all. Goodbye.
Take care. Bye.
Yep. Bye bye. Thank you.